All right. So I just finished watching Superman 2025. I saw the trailer a while ago. I thought it was pretty good. So I went to go watch it today on release date. Um Overall, I'd say pretty good. 8 out of 10. It's a superhero movie, so I thought it was decent, but there were just some parts where I thought it was a bit convoluted. The plot wasn't maybe like what as well written. So yeah, so just as a FYI, this is a spoiler alert. If you still won't have intentions of watching it, maybe just stop the stream and video. But yeah, here we go. So we start out with basically this Hammer of Bavaria guy, or whatever, starts beating the crap out of Superman, and Superman gets beat up. He goes to this Fortress of Solitude, he recovers, and then goes back, and then basically gets beat up again. And then we find out that this dude is you know financed by Lex Luthor or something. And then blah blah blah. Fast forward, basically Clark Kent and Lois Lane are dating, which okay, fine. We don't get to see like how that develops. It's not exactly a true Day Zero origin story, which I'm fine with. Um, and then so on. Lex Luthor obviously wants to ruin Superman's career based on his ego or whatever, right? So they have this recording of his Krypton parents just yapping about, dude, they're just glazing it. They're like, yo, you're our only hope, blah blah blah. Be a good man. And then they hack in, and then they basically recover the second part of the message, which is as they translate, these Earth people are like simple, dominate them, kill as many people as possible. So my problem is that they basically never really. Well, first of all, Superman, like, how the fuck did you not realize that they got this footage that's being live streamed from your fortress, bro? Like, why is that not the first place that you check? Why do you go straight to like, I don't know. I think yeah, they go straight to. He starts panicking, or he's like, dude, how did they get this? Like, no way. Like, my parents were lying to me this entire time, dude. Why didn't you go to like the Fortress of Solitude just to check out? Like, dude, why is your first question not how did they get this footage? It's like that's stupid to me. And then when he finally gets there, he starts freaking out. He's like, dude, somebody broke in, he killed all the robots, and then he he's like, oh, dude, Crypto's gone. His dog's gone. And then he starts freaking out. He starts going, he flies towards Lex Luthor and starts threatening him. He's like, dude, where's the dog? Like, where's the dog? Like, I know you took him. Like, I know this is supposed to be like an immature Superman, but like, god damn, dude, get your shit together. Um, yeah. Anyways, he goes back. Lois Lane. They're talking about some shit, and then he turns himself in. Uh, they have Metamorpho create like kryptonite, and then they go to like this pocket dimension where they're just like torturing him. Like, they didn't even ask any like question. They're trying to interrogate him based on like his parents' footage, which everyone seems to forget by like the second half of the movie. So it's like a MacGuffin crystal. Like, who gives a fuck? Like, why did that end up mattering? It didn't. It just it's just excuse to move the plot along. Um, yeah. So they just go to this pocket dimension. They're they got this street vendor dude that was nice to Superman for once for some reason, and then like they're just like, yo, tell us what you know about your parents, or else we're gonna kill him. And then after like they play, Lex Luthor plays like a little Russian roulette with his gun, and then he accidentally kills him. Like, what the hell? Why? Out of all the possible deaths in this film, why is it a random street vendor that sells falafel? That was just so random to me. So yeah, that happens, and then Metamorpho starts crying and be like, dude, I didn't know they're gonna kill this guy. Like, I was just doing this because they have my son. So if I stop the kryptonite, can you get my son, and then we can get out of this pocket dimension? Um, yeah. So they eventually do that. They escape. They sleep at the Clark Kent farm or whatever, and then the finale happens where basically, Lex Luthor has these two supervillains. One's called Engineer. She's like, she morphs into whatever she wants or whatever via nanites or some shit. And then another guy called Ultraman. I'm like, what the fuck? What kind of name is Ultraman? So, anyways, they start fighting. Um, Superman's getting his ass beat. Finally, he pulls some trick out of his ass and then defeats Engineer. And the big reveal is that Ultraman is a fucking clone of Superman, which is, dude, you could have built up to that. That's a pretty dumb reveal. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, so Ultraman starts wailing the shit out of Superman, and then Superman, calls in Crypto. Crypto somehow he starts beating up the cameras that Lex Luthor is controlling using to control Ultraman, and then Superman just beats the shit out of him. There's was one thing I really like though. He's like kind of pinned down by Ultraman, so he dislocates his shoulder and throws him like off a cliff, and then he just like gets sucked into a black hole, which is pretty cool. Like it's not something I would have expected. Pretty cool action scene. Anyways, and then all this is happening at the same time. There's like a rift, and also for some reason there's a conflict in two unknown countries. Yeah, so they call in the Justice Gang to help the conflict, while Superman, handles, Lex Luthor, and they end up fixing the dimensional rift or whatever, and then that's the end of the story basically. So I have a few gripes with it. Overall, it was a very enjoyable film. Don't all these complaints doesn't mean that it wasn't a bad film. It was a very enjoyable film. I would give it an 8 out of 10, like I said, and I enjoyed it better than Man of Steel. But there's just like a few points I feel like are a little convoluted. Number one, the whole point why this plot line kind of moved along in the first place is because they found out Superman's parents, the second half of his message was deciphered. And they want him to dominate Earth, basically. I mean, and then they kind of just forget about that in the second half. So I would have liked to seen like Superman. Yeah, he freaked out a bit about it, but why didn't he like go like figure out for himself why their parents sent like this? Did he get his own translation? Because the translated hologram was from Lex Luthor, so he might have fabricated this. So that's point number one that I thought was kind of dumb. Point number two, like you have the Justice Gang, that was pretty cool, and they tried to like involve them in the plot, but really I don't think the Justice Gang was that helpful. There's three of them. There's Green Lantern, there's Hawkgirl, and then Mr. Terrific. Out of all of them, you can just delete Green Lantern and Hawkgirl and just have Mr. Terrific, and the plot would just be exactly the same. They really just only have him introduced. In the middle, they don't really do anything, and then at the end, they come in and save the war, basically. So they probably could have involved them a little bit more. It's probably just like a way to set up the universe or whatever. But basically, only Mr. Terrific was the only relevant one out of those three. Number three, like they try to like include the Clark Kent side of the story. He's a journalist, and he he's got like his little newspaper company. They don't really introduce themselves except for like Lois Lane and maybe Jimmy. So those guys were pretty much irrelevant the entire film, except like the last part. They somehow piece together like, dude, Lex Luthor is involved in this conspiracy with the war and like the dimensional rift, which is like, dude, I think it's like a pretty flimsy way of connecting those two events. So they type out a story and they publish it in the aftermath. It's like, dude, like Metropolis was about to get destroyed. it's done now, and then all of a sudden news come up. Breaking news: Lex Luthor was involved in this conspiracy. Like, I don't know what the word for it is. It's just like not that. It doesn't tie the plot together very well. They had a lot of things going on. They're very ambitious with this storyline, and I don't feel like they did a good job of tying it all together. And then I think there's like one last complaint. It's not as big as the other three, but one last one is like basically I know they're trying to hammer home the idea that like, yo, Superman is a human. He was raised here. He was raised here by human parents. His real parents are, the Kents, not the Kryptonite or Kryptonian parents. So like at the very end, they kind of like hammer in this idea by saying, "Oh, let me put on a video of my parents." Um, it's soothing to me. It's kind of call back to the beginning. The parents is like it's the recording of the hologram of the Kryptonians, and then now it's like just a bunch of childhood memories from the Kents. Like I feel like they could have done a better job of tying that all together instead of just showing them. There was really only one scene with the Kents. It was when they break out of the prison. He's heavily injured. They fly back to the farm, and then they have one conversation with his dad, which he says, you know, your actions make who you are. Basically, you're human. You are who you are. You're not what your Kryptonian parents want you to be. Yeah, so that wasn't very well tied either. And then one last thing, they didn't really like. I wish they, instead of like outright saying their themes in the dialogue, I wish they would have like introduced those in the plot. Maybe they were too ambitious. So what I mean is like, um, in the penultimate confrontation with Lex, he's like, "Oh, that's what you don't understand. I'm human. I make mistakes. Blah blah blah." Instead of just saying that, you could have shown us that, kind of like, I guess like an example would be in The Dark Knight. We kind of see that Batman, even though he's very capable, he's still human. He makes mistakes. He's not perfect. And in Superman, we just kind of see him talk about it. He just says, "I'm human. I'm not perfect. I'm like you." Um, so it was kind of those points that should have been kind of introduced through, scenes instead of dialogue. Other than that, I actually really like it. It was a very good action scenes. It was kind of like a throwback instead of like, I know Zack Snyder with Man of Steel was trying to like bring him into like a darker place, which not a lot of people liked. I liked this one. It wasn't too overfilled with darker themes. It was kind of just like a throwback to like I don't know, Christopher Reeve's Superman, was just like kind of lighthearted fun. There are some points where like it's kind of threatening. It's not too big. You kind of figure out that they kind of figured out in the end, obviously. But action scenes were very good. Overall, it was a pretty good like Day Zero, or not exactly Day Zero origin story. It was kind of like just a introducing point to Superman. We already know his story, so they just jumped right into the plot. And I think I forgot his name, that portrays Lex Luthor. I think he was very good. Probably better than, I think, Jesse Eisenberg or whatever played him in was it Suicide Squad or Justice League or something. So I really like the portrayal of Lex Luthor. They don't really go into detail about the Clark Kent side, like I said, but David Corenswet, uh, I think he's a very good replacement for Henry Cavill as Superman. He's he's pretty good. Also, he's a pretty good actor. I don't know about his previous work. Pretty good. Let's go down the list. Metamorpho, kind of weird. I don't know. Yeah, they kind of included him for Kryptonite, but again, he kind of had the same issue with the Justice Gang. He wasn't really, essential to the story. It's probably just to introduce them for future films. Nathan Fillion, obviously, I love that guy. That guy played Buck in Halo ODST, and he's back as Green Lantern. So I love, like I really like him. I just wish he was more involved. Well, they'll probably get into that into future movies. Hawkgirl, she wasn't very memorable. Um, yeah, I guess another complaint I have about the movie is Engineer. Basically, at some point in the movie, they're like, "Oh my god, they escaped from the prison. Now the prison is going to, basically create a black hole on Earth." And you see Engineer kind of like protesting the fact that Lex wants to keep it open. But then like we see later on, like Lex did this to attract Superman to solve the problem. And then we see later on engineers, they're fighting Superman to stop him from solving the problem that she protested about. So that didn't really make sense to me. Um, that's something that's kind of minor. Maybe like they just overlooked that. For some reason, Jimmy Olsen, he's like in a relationship with, or like had a relationship with Lex Luthor's girlfriend, and the only reason, and she's like her like her the leak, like she's the one leaking like the conspiracy stuff to Jimmy, and for some reason they added that. I don't really like that as a plot point. They're like, oh, I know this girl, she has freaky toes, and she's next to Lex Luthor, and then I can get some information. That was like a really weird addition to the story. Um, the rest of the people at the Daily Planet, not really memorable. Uh, who else? They introduced like some people in the Pentagon. I understand Rick Flag Senior is supposed to be like coming in. I think Peacemaker. And he had like a minor role, whatever. And then in the end, Superman's cousin, Kara Zor-El or whatever, um, comes in. Basically, she was the owner of crypto, and she was out partying the entire time. And yeah, that was about it. All this complaint doesn't mean that it was a bad film. It wasn't a bad film, like by any means. I thought it was very enjoyable. The only thing that was keeping it from, I think, a really good film was those minor plot points that didn't really tie the script together. So I think the script was the main issue. I like I like the action scenes. I like the costume design. I like the soundtrack. Soundtrack's really good. But yeah, that's about it. That's my review on Superman. But yeah, that's it. Thanks for listening to me yap about that.